Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters. And yes, I have a very special treat for you today. Last week, we got the opportunity to check out the film The Black Demon, the latest installment in the long line of shark films. Another contender for the Megalodon spot, as we have other things like The Meg and now The Meg 2, hopefully coming out this August for us. But the Black Demon kind of stuck in there. And with the opportunity of getting to review the film early, we actually also got the opportunity to sit down with one of the actors, actually somebody that I'm very familiar with their work from a film that I absolutely adore called Sicario. Not a horror film, but a great movie nonetheless. We do get into that in the interview a bit, but I did get to sit down and speak with Julio Cedillo, just one of the biggest class acts I've gotten to sit down with. This gentleman is so awesome. I mean, he really gave me a bunch of time. We talked about the acting process, what it's like to be on set. We talked a little bit about the kind of mythology and the legend of the Black Demon and just where all this came from, his first exposure to it. And I mean, he just really is one of the kindest, most encouraging people that I've gotten to sit down with in Hollywood. And I think that this goes along great with our shifted interview that we just posted this week, because again, there's a lot of messages for people who want to break into this industry, for people who want, whether that's an actor, a writer, a director, they all start somewhere. And, Julio is someone who's been around the block a little bit. He's been in a lot of films, some major successes, some kind of under the radar, but he's gotten to work with a lot of different directors, other actors of varying calibers. And, you just see him just soak up all of that and just constantly putting himself out there, trying to learn new things, trying to experience new experiences when he's working on a film. And I mean, the guy is seriously just a class act all the way around. I really enjoyed my conversation with him. I felt extremely motivated to keep working on my own projects and keep working on this channel after I finished it. And I love when I feel that way after talking to somebody like him who's out there doing this, making movies, working with huge names like Benicio del Toro and Denis Villeneuve. It's like, this is amazing stuff. So yeah, without further ado, I'm just gonna throw it up here for you guys to see. It's a great interview. I hope you guys enjoy it, and yeah, we'll just hop right into it. Alrighty, guys. So I am sitting here, of course, with one of the stars of The Black Demon here, Julio Cedillo. Thank you, sir, for joining us. We really appreciate to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is awesome. I love the vibe you got back there.
Yes,
You and I would probably be best friends if we were the same age, but I'm much older. But I so love that you are a movie fan.
I absolutely always have been. I've been since I was a little kid. I've always said I want to be a director. So like that's kind of where my head's been at. I've never changed my career path. So I'm
Awesome.
hoping to get there at some point. But horror
Yeah.
films are kind of my bread and butter these days. I tend to really gravitate towards that. Which again, horror, action, sci-fi, that kind of stuff is what brought me to your film today. Yeah, but I might surprise you. I have a couple other questions because your career is actually one that I've seen quite a bit of when I went and looked at your IMDb there. But the first thing I want to ask you in regards to the Black Demon is what was it that kind of drew you into this project? How did you get involved with the Mega Shark film?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, you're gonna laugh when I tell you this, but they sent me the audition, and I had just come back from a trip, and then I was dealing with a couple personal things, things that I had to tend to.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember they sent me an eight-page audition for the scene that I eventually do in the film, and my head was not in the right headspace. I thought, oh my God, I can't do this right now. I got, I'm so distracted with personal things. So I just told my agent, I said, I can't do, if I can't do a good one, then it's better not to do anything. Otherwise you're going to give them something really bad. So I passed on it. And then about a week later, I get a call from the producer from Mucho Mas Media, my good friend now, Javier Chapa. He calls me and he says, "Hey, I just checking in on you just to, see if you're still interested in the Black Demon." And I was confused. And I said, "Well, I said, listen, the fact that you even took time to call me, yeah, you know what? I'll go ahead and let me read the whole thing, and then I'll get an audition out to you. And he says, what are you talking about? I said, are you not calling me to see if you want me to audition? He goes, no, we're offering you the role.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so I was like, what? He's like, yeah. He's like, no, it's yours. I mean, if you like it, yes. I mean, we're not gonna obligate you, but read it, come, get back to us. I said, okay. And so to answer your question, when I read it, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. That script,
Mhm.
the script is doing a lot. I mean, to be honest with you, what I love about the Black Demon is that it's going into uncharted territory with this genre.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of a risk they're taking, right? And you've got a through line of a mythological through line. There's the Aztec, sort of god aspect to it. You also have the family, and then you got this shark. There's a lot going on there. But we're in the ocean, and there's some scuba diving. First of all, I don't swim. I don't know how to swim. I don't. The last thing I want to do is be underwater. So when I read it, but I loved it so much. And one of the things I told myself, I always said this to myself as an actor: if I'm afraid of something, that's a good idea. That's a good thing, because it
Mhm.
forces me to confront something as an actor. And so therefore I'm not trying to play it safe as an actor. And I think, actors like to do the thing they do. For me, it's not that. For me, I like to be challenged, and it's always a risk for me. When I did Narcos Mexico, that's a different kind of tough guy. And I'm always playing these sort of tough guys, right?
Mhm.
But Chato just had it just appealed to me because this is a guy who works in the middle, in the ocean. He's one of the last surviving roughnecks on this rig. And to be honest, I mean, I think if we had to have a backstory, I mean, I think Chato was ready to die. He was gonna figure out a way to kill this thing, but he was gonna die with that rig. The only problem now is that this inspector shows up unannounced, and then all of a sudden his family falls on his lap. There's a lot to kind of take in. So I loved all those elements, and I said, sure, man, I'll do it. And so we shot this thing in the Dominican Republic for about, I mean, we were there for almost 2 months. There's some pre-stuff before we had to deal with. We took a break, and then we came back. And then also half the crew got COVID. So
Oh,
we all
wow.
had to isolate for 10 days. And, we're an island, the Dominican Republic. So vaccines were available, but still we wanted to be safe with all the local people. And we had a lot of amazing crew members who were in the film business. And so we wanted to play it safe. I got COVID as well, isolated for 10 days. And then after that isolation, 3 days later, I'm find myself underwater shooting for 5 hours. Now, I saw the movie. You're not going to see me 5 hours underwater. It was just not even a minute underwater,
Mhm.
which kind of sucks. But I loved it. I loved every aspect of it. And I walked away with new friends. And, this film is, to be honest with you, it is a shark. Without a doubt, it's a shark movie, without a doubt. But it's a family film. I mean, honestly,
Mhm.
oddly enough, it's a family film, and we got the rated R because of a few little, moments where you see some body parts and grisly moments. There's just, it's not that bad. So in all honesty, you could take your family. I mean, I'll be honest, we should have gotten a PG-13.
I would agree with that. I
Yeah,
really would heavily agree with that because, like, I think that overall, watching the film, it was one of those things where I'm like, you know, looking back on it, there wasn't a ton of violence, and that was something that I enjoy shark movies, but I've always said that, like, when it comes to the megalodon itself, which I like what you guys do here with, going into this
oh
legend, this
man,
cryptid,
thank you so much.
and kind of making that set itself apart from something like the Meg, where it's
Yeah,
just a standard megalodon. Is just that with that, you just get gobbled up so quickly. Like there's not really any chance for all that gore and stuff. So I was just shocked when I saw that this was rated R before I had watched it. So I was like, man, they must be getting into some really gritty stuff. And you're right, there's a couple sequences of gore, but I definitely could see
it's
this being
yeah,
a good entryway into the shark genre for a younger audience. Say you're like 10 to 13, you could go
yeah,
see this
yeah,
flick. Hmm.
yeah. It's a little misleading with that rating, which is fine. I mean, you kind of take it as a badge of honor. The
Hmm.
other aspect of it, for me, honestly, story is important for me. So the fact that there was a story there with
Hmm.
this family, uh, of course, somebody's going to be dying in this thing, and there's some people that did, but what I'm proud of in a ways, and like I said earlier, because we are in uncharted territory with this kind of storyline, is the cultural element. And being that I'm from Mexico, I was born in Mexico. I remember seeing Jaws, and I remember thinking, where is somebody that looks like me in the film? I didn't see anyone like that. Now, mind you, that's not the main concern. It is nice to see yourself in movies and relate to them. I think that's the
Hmm.
beauty of films. But at the end of the day, you still got to tell a story, And
Absolutely.
so to me, I like the focus that we still focus on the story. But it is nice to be able to be up there. And I'm not saying our film is better than Jaws or any other shark film. It's kind of in its own little lane. And at least whether people like it or not, we're always going to be up there and listed among these shark films. And I feel proud of that, and the fact that we speak Spanish and it takes
Hmm.
place where it does. And to be honest with you, I mean, I don't know if there will ever be a sequel, but I think Chato would love to be in a sequel.
Oh yeah, no, I'd love to see you come back because I think that the chemistry that you brought to the film was something that I enjoyed seeing. I mean, like,
Thank you so
we see a lot of actors who get to come in there and work with someone like Josh Lucas, who's like been in a lot of movies before. But I honestly thought that you really held your own, and you were somebody that I like. Luke and I even said in our review that you really grounded it in the sense of bringing that kind of heartfelt nature of it, where it's like your character has this. I don't want to spoil anything. This revelation of where Josh Lucas's character says something like about you in the rig, and
Yeah.
how, yeah, and it was just one of those things where I was just like, wow, that's actually a really, like, a little bit dark but also a very heartfelt moment. And that was something that I was just like, it's very impactful. Now I have a couple other questions, but since we're
Please,
talking about that, I want to skip to one
let's
here in
go.
a moment.
Yeah.
But go right on ahead with what you were going to say. I
No,
don't
no,
want to
no.
interrupt you.
I'm right there with you. Look, I was very happy to be working with someone like Josh, but I've had years of working with so many great actors. Tommy Lee Jones, Daniel Craig from Cowboys and Aliens, Sam Rockwell. I worked in I've Narcos Mexico, working with Diego Luna and a bunch of wonderful actors. I think that what you do as an actor is your job is to flesh things out in a script. Your job is to stay grounded, and your job is to also serve the story. And even I'm not in this case. I'm not saying my director Adrian ever gave me bad direction, but you're very cognizant of what you're doing and what you're doing in the story. And sometimes you're going to stick to your guns to get to the truth in the scene, and so you try to stay as grounded and rooted as much as possible, and you don't allow yourself to kind of run away with whatever you think is cool, because sometimes that doesn't work. you
Yeah,
know I mean, I got to work in Sicario, opposite Benicio, and I know what it's like to just sit there and just stay as grounded as possible when you're in a scene, and it was nice to share that space with Josh, and I've been getting a lot of remarks about that. But Josh, all of us, Josh, Fernanda, wonderful Chilean actress, well, actress who happens to be Chilean. That's usually how I say it. People refer to me as a Mexican actor, and I'm like, well, I'm an actor who happens to be
be
Mexican.
Mexican. Yeah,
But no, I think these were all fine actors, and like with anything, we're just trying to find our way through the story, and hoping that we can flesh it out. And nothing's perfect, but I think there was a lot of heart behind it, and that's what I'm most proud of.
that's great. And so, like I said, I'm going to skip to this question because this is kind of my fanboy question for you.
Definitely do it.
You already mentioned it, but in 2014, you played a very integral role in one of my all-time favorite films, Sicario.
Yeah,
You were opposite Benicio del Toro in what I consider, and I know many others, the most pivotal scene in the film, emotionally, tension-wise, and just I think the thing that really set me off in that theater when I first saw it. And you also work with Dennis Villanueva, who's one of my all-time favorite filmmakers. I got to ask about that experience. I know for my audience, it does nothing to do with horror, but I'm telling you guys, this movie is fantastic. And Julio, you are one of the, at times, you're only in that, I believe, that one scene, but you're
yeah,
you're at times very intimidating, but also you have this whole experience, and I don't want to like spoil it for people, but the events that take place in that scene,
sure.
you sell it so beautifully that it's one of those scenes that every time, and I've seen this movie a dozen times, it makes my heart pound just watching your face drop when you know what happens. And it's just like, oh my God, dude. And I gotta say, like, as a like just fanboying out, like,
Yeah.
bravo, sir. That was incredible.
Hey, listen, man, thank you so much. I got to tell you though, I auditioned for the role of the police officer, the Mexican police officer who has a son, and Benicio, deals with that cop and doesn't make it. But I was hoping I would have gotten that role, and they called me and said, "No, you've been cast as Fausto Alarcón." And it's in a Denis Villeneuve film, who did, Prisoners, and a couple did.
Blade Runner and Dune and
Well,
all
Blade
those.
Runner was after, Dune was after, but there was one other film, I forget the first name of it. But anyway, I'd seen a couple of his short films, but Prisoners, I had seen Prisoners, which blew my mind. And so I was like, Fausto Larcon, I don't recognize that particular character. And by the way, they don't give you a script; they give you what they call sides, which is just your portion of the scene. And so I had. I read it, and it was not the scene we shot. The scene that Taylor Sheridan wrote in Sicario was Benicio coming in through the kitchen, and there's a grandmother there, and then my character would have been with his wife, and then he ushers the kids, has the kids ushered out with the grandmother. He stabs the drug lord with the fork in his hand, goes through the table, and it's a real tropey scene.
Yeah.
And when I read that, I thought, for me as an actor, I can't go anywhere. There's nothing there for me to play with other than I'm going to be a token drug lord punching bag. And I told my agent, I said, I can't do it as much as I want to work with this gentleman. I mean, in good conscience, I can. Not as an actor, right? Anybody else could do it. That's fine, but I can't do it. And so, just to make a long story short, Denis Villeneuve eventually called me, and I was on a family trip. My son Julian answered the phone, and he said, "Dad, there's some guy named Denis wants to talk to you." And I was like, "What?" And I grabbed Denis, and he says, "Julio," he says, "How are you? I want to talk to you about the role, And I told him, I confessed. I said, "Look, I love your work. I would love to work with you, but I can't." And I explained to him what I told you. What I told him is, I said, "Look, yes, this guy's a drug lord, but he's still a father. He's still having dinner. He has to protect his kids, and he wasn't given that dignity. Benicio's a monster in this film, and this scene is very important to show that, regardless of who this man is, right? And not to give anything away, but yeah, that was something that he understood, and we went back and well, about a couple of weeks later, I find myself on the set, and we're working through two versions of that scene, and it took two nights to shoot that scene out, and it was great. It was so great, and working with Benicio, and we improv just a little bit, not much, and combined two scenes together, and it was great. I mean, we shot, like I said, two versions of that, and the one that you saw on the screen is the one that was the best one.
I mean, that's absolutely incredible to find out. Like, this is the stuff that I love about getting the privilege to talk to someone like you who's worked on a movie that is so important and formative to just like how I hope to approach film in the future. Because, like, again, that scene to me is just the most pivotal scene in the film. I mean, it's not only like the emotional climax of the film in a lot of ways, but it's like, the whole time you're trying to figure out what's really going on with Benicio del Toro. What are his motivations? And then here you are, the person responsible for all this pain. And like I said, not only do you guys do a wonderful job of just hearing what that alternative scene would have been like is just so shocking to me, because it feels so intentional to have you, who's like, yes, in Benicio's eyes, you are the devil incarnate. Like, you took so much away from him, but you are still a family man. And that's something I always point out about this movie to my friends, and to like my dad, who's a big movie buff too. When I showed it to him, was just like, they humanized like the main bad guy. And that's so incredible to me. Like,
That is the best way. When we worked on Narcos Mexico, one of the things that we talked about a lot on set, and we really believe this, is, I'll give you an example. If you can humanize dictators, if you can humanize any political person who's got power, if you can show their human side, you can take them down. That is why mafiosos love the Godfather movies, all the big, sort of Italian mafia movies, even the Sopranos, because you're selling a myth. Narcos Mexico, kind of the same thing. You're telling the truth, but you're still kind of, I wouldn't say necessarily glorifying them, but in a way you're kind of doing it without trying. You don't mean to. All it takes is for these narco guys to say, "Hey, did you watch Narcos? That's what we're like." The reality is, if you can expose them for the idiots they are, for their kindness. I mean, a lot of them are
Mhm.
kind, and a lot of them, have fears. A lot of them have concerns. If you can expose more of that, once you humanize someone, you can take them down,
Yeah.
and that's
Everybody's a person at the end of the day.
everybody's a person. Exactly. So the thing is that when you're shooting a script and you want to make a bad guy, don't make the bad guy unless it's an archetype. It's like when a sheriff walks through the door. If he's
Mhm.
wearing a badge and it says sheriff, you kind of already have a backstory about that sheriff, because all sheriffs are kind of an archetype. But can you imagine if you're doing a Western and it's got that Clint Eastwood vibe, and all of a sudden the sheriff walks in, you see the badge and the camera pans up and it's a Vietnamese person.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden it changes the whole dynamic of the whole thing because you've never seen that before. But guess what? Wouldn't that be interesting? Now
It
you really
would be.
then you want to dive into the story, right? So archetypes are important in films, and that's important. And sometimes stereotypes are there, but it's our job to flesh them out. Stereotypes exist for a reason, by the way. I always tell people, don't when you spot a stereotype, don't run away from it. Understand that it just means you got to work a little harder to flesh it out, and you'll
Mhm.
and you'll get there. But yeah, I mean, it's an awesome thing. And going back to you wanting to, definitely do your own thing, by all means. I try to tell people who are young and getting into this, like, the problem with Instagram and social media and all those platforms is that you're everyone's trying to compare themselves to a finished product. That's so unfair to you. What my job as an actor, which is why I'm happy to be here and talk about the Black Demon and certainly talk about my work, is that I'm here to demystify some of it so that you understand that it's a creative process. It takes a lot of people involved to make this stuff happen. Certainly in the Dominican Republic, we had great crew, shot 1,000 square foot tank where, they shoot ocean movies in that tank, but they actually built an oil rig 2 stories high. The rest of it was CGI, but nonetheless, they built a real, scaled down version of a rig, and it was incredible. It takes a lot of people, but you can do your own movies. You can grab your phone. The equipment is now there that you can do your own thing, but don't beat yourself up. You can do the good work, and especially my big respect to anybody who's a movie fan, and certainly someone like you who understands films. I don't see you as just a movie fan. I see you as a connoisseur of films,
I appreciate that.
Yeah, without a doubt. So you're going to pick up on all the beauty of what it takes to make these films and the kind of directors that are there, the approaches. And so guess what? That's going to make you a better filmmaker. Tarantino isn't where he is had he not known that, but he also steals from everything, but he does it in a really good way that makes it his own. So in essence, there's no reason to reinvent the wheel. But
Mhm.
sometimes we take risks, and certainly The Black Demon is a film that took a risk on
Absolutely.
bending the genre, So I'm really proud of the film, and I think people will like it, especially those who want a story behind it, and I think they're gonna get it.
Absolutely. And like to get back on the Black Demon here, a big part of it that we talked about a little bit at the start was just how it incorporates a lot of Mexican culture and things like that. And with this legend of the El Dominio
El
Negro is
Demonio
just,
Negro, which is the Black
yeah,
Demon in Spanish, yeah.
yeah. And that's one of those things where it's like, you like, that's if you're like me and you're a big cryptid nerd, you kind of look into this. This is something you've seen stuff. I've watched little YouTube videos and things about it.
Yeah,
So to see them actually translate it and it not just be your typical big shark,
yeah.
that's a very different way into this. Was that a big like selling point for you? You told us your story of how you got in, but when you read the script and you were understanding like, oh, okay, this
I
is
I love
going in
that,
this, you love that. Yeah.
Yes, yes, just to add to that, yes, it's kind of like our Loch Ness monster.
Yeah.
It's kinda like the chupacabras. It's almost like the El Cucuy, or, which is our boogeyman, or La Llorona, the crying woman, who's lost her children, and she's, sort of, longing for them, and she's a suffering soul. We all have those mythical stories, but I love that it was tied into the indigenous culture. And by the way, and I'm going to be completely honest, I hadn't heard of El Demonio Negro, so I went back to look for some of these stories, and there are a few here and there. There were sightings, but they go
Mhm.
back to the 1500s. Um, so it was really nice to see that tied into the mythological aspect, tied to the Aztec aspect of it. I mean, there is a point in the film where I have to actually pray in the real Nahuatl language, you know and you hear me. There's a point where I pray, and I say Atlante consintli, paquiliscate consintli. I'm speaking a whole passage of prayer in the Nahuatl language. And there was a language professor from the University of Mexico City, and they sent me his recordings because he was doing the prayer, and I phonetically had to write it out and learn it and then deliver it naturally. So that was a lot of fun. So there is that aspect of it that I'm so happy with it, because it really is. It means a lot to me, especially being a person who happens to be Mexican.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, and again, that was one of the big points for me when the film was first announced and kind of got into it, where I was just like, yeah, this definitely seems like they're adding a different element to it. And that's always what you got to appreciate, because it's like, we've seen shark films 100 times, but this is kind of, again, like you had said, evolving the genre in a way, so where we can kind of see a different side of it. And then I was surprised again to see, it has messages about, like, the environment, and then also just like, what, like, big corporations and things like that, when they come into small towns and things like that, what they can do to people and where they push people and things like that. It's a very layered film, and that is
Yeah,
something
it
I don't
is.
know if a lot of people will be
Yeah.
expecting.
No, I appreciate that, and I think it's always a delicate thing. I mean, some people may be triggered by it one way or another. It doesn't really matter. I mean, look at COVID. Some people wanted to wear a mask, some people didn't. It's the same thing with the environment. Some people care about the environment, some people don't want to hear about it. It doesn't really matter. I think right now the film, what I love about it is that it's a family that's dealing with their own value system, and somehow within the story, without giving anything away, it's being challenged by the father. The father did something in the past that he shouldn't have, so that's something he's got to square off, right? But there is an effect to that, and I love that we kind of touched on that, because it is an element also of the mythological aspect of it. It's got
Mhm.
to be tied into that. But there are also moments of levity. I mean, there's some very comical
Oh, yeah.
moments. I mean, look, I've got the little dog Torito, Toro. I mean, he's there. He's got a little attitude. I love that. That we actually had two dogs, one that would growl and the other one that would run and would let you pet him. The other one wouldn't let you even touch him. So, but there's the beauty of that. There's also the beauty of my friendship with my friend, Junior.
Mhm.
One of my favorite scenes, if you had to ask me, I mean, I have a lot of them, but this is literally one of my favorite ones, because the actor who's in it, who plays Junior, is actually an amazing actor. He was in Narcos, the first season of Narcos. He played Poison. He's a phenomenal actor, and much to my surprise and his, we didn't know this, but we were cast together. And when I showed up, I was like, "Oh my God, what are you doing here?" And we hung out, had beers at the beach, and then we'd go to work. And one of my favorite scenes is right before we go into the water, and he's
Yeah,
looking
the
at me.
belt.
We have a great moment where we're trying to figure out who's going to go down first, right? And we kind of improv that one together. We kind of wrote that little scene for ourselves, and it was a lot of fun, man. I'm really happy to be in this film, and I can't wait for people to see it. I hope everybody can go see it. It opens April 28th, and
Mhm.
hopefully, we get people out this weekend. And it's all about numbers now.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that even though it's got a little bit of a more limited release, I do think this is something that will stick with people, especially as they start to find it. Because that's the thing that I find with a lot of like sci-fi and horror these days too, that is in more of the independent realm in some aspects, is just that, over time, more people pick up these things, and then you see this like showering of love as it goes along, like especially
Yeah,
because it's just like, after COVID, it's tough to get people into the theater sometimes, but I
yeah.
think that
Well,
the independent films are getting people back, but also they're having such a longer lifespan than just the
yeah,
movie of the week?
yeah. I mean, look, I think the streaming platforms are kind of a double-edged sword. To be honest with
Mhm.
you, I wish we could all go. We would see those theaters full. That's not the reality we're in anymore. And so part of it is when you have a streaming platform, it's kind of like your library of books. The books are there, and you can pick it up and read it whenever you want, but you don't give it the priority that you used to when movies would come out to the theater. So it's
Mhm.
kind of that. It's kind of that double-edged sword aspect of it. But on the flip side, hey, that's so cool. Now you've got a whole library of things you can see at any moment. You're right. People will it will become what it's supposed to become. I did a movie called The Three Burials of
Yeah.
Mental Estrada with Tommy Lee Jones, and it's a western that when people watch it, they're blown away. And we went to the Cannes Film Festival, won 2 Palme d'Ors for that film. One for Tommy for Best Actor, one for Best Screenplay for Guillermo Arriaga, And that film, even though now we're, in about 2 years, that's, or actually, no, in about one more
Yeah,
year,
about a year or
about a
so.
year, it'll be 20 years that we shot that film, and it's a cult classic Western.
Mhm.
So I have a feeling this film could get there for sure.
I think so. I think the horror community, especially after it, has its release here, will start to embrace it because of the messages and everything that you guys intentionally place into it. Plus, again, I think that one of the most important elements to it is just like, again, the relationship between you and Junior and everything that you guys add to it. I think that that is something that's going to stick with people because, again, in my review, that's honestly what I highlighted the most was because
Oh, that's so awesome.
I
That's
enjoyed just the relationship you guys had, and it was something where Luke and I said, I almost want to see a movie of like the evacuation and
yeah.
just like where you guys were in that moment in time and what brought you there. It's like I want to see a prequel. So, that's just my opinion. But I mean,
Hey,
obviously, if you get a
from your
sequel,
mouth
that's
to
great
our
too.
producer's ears, from your mouth to our producer's ears, who knows? We'll see.
Absolutely.
Uh,
But alrighty, Julio, I think that's about everything I have for you. I really appreciate you coming on here and talking with me and letting me gush about your performance in Sicario. Again, not really horror for the channel, but I had to do it, guys. I mean, it's once in a lifetime opportunity. So thank you so
sure.
much. And thank you for your work in The Black Demon. And I can't wait to see what you do next.
Hey, listen. So you anybody who has a message for me, including you, let's stay in touch. I'm on Instagram. It's at Julio Cedillo. Last name Cedillo, and I'm accessible. And the reason I say this, not because I'm looking for followers. What I'm saying is, I get a lot of people who reach out to me who have the same questions you have, and there's also a lot of people who want to start out as actors. And I've always been accessible, and I always let people know. My journey, and I let them know that they can be in this. I mean, somebody asked me, what is it like to be in Hollywood, working in Hollywood? I'm like, what are you talking about? I mean, that's a mindset, that's a zip code. This may sound sacrilegious, but Hollywood lives inside you. Give yourself permission to go make the movies. Don't wait for someone to nod at you and give you permission. No, you don't need the license. You've already got it. Go do it. And I love demystifying what I do because it's work. It's hard work.
Absolutely.
Being in this business is hard work. There's a lot of amazing craftspeople, and the Black Demon had countless of those people. And it takes a while for this stuff to unfold, but when it does, it's cool to see it.
100%. And that's a really beautiful sentiment, honestly. Like demystifying this is great because, like, even just for me and my small little channel right now, it's something where my partner and I have been at it for about a year.
Yeah.
And just like the amount of work that we've put into it, it's like it's
Yeah.
something that we're proud of it. We're
Well, you're
happy with where
serving the
we're getting.
community.
So
You're serving the greater community. Look, there are a lot of people who feel like they work hard, and some people don't want to help others. That's fine, though. I don't believe in that. I believe that there's a greater good, and even if you can give people a little bit more information, the more information you have, you realize you can do all this. We're serving the community. I mean, you have someone on your listening to your content and what you have to offer, and they walk away with so much. Listen, I've got my favorite podcasts that I listen to.
mhm,
There's a lot of them that I listen to that I learn a lot, and I learn a lot from listening to other actors speak and directors and writers, and it helps me when I'm on set. Kind of helps me troubleshoot some things. I suffer from imposter syndrome every time I'm on a set. That's real. That's me being real, and I'm not gonna lie about
absolutely.
it. But when you realize that you're not a puppet and that you can actually flesh things out and you have a voice and use that voice, if you can believe, if you can believe that you're great, not that you're better than anyone else, you're great for yourself, you will become great. And perception is reality, and it will become real. You are that great. So go be great.
And honestly, I watched a few of your interviews previously that are on YouTube before this, and I do appreciate this message that you send out to people, and like you said, demystifying things and just letting people know this is obtainable. It's like just because you're not Brad Pitt like right away, it's like you could still
Yeah.
get satisfaction, be in the arts, and actually like show up in things like Narcos and Sicario and the Black
Oh,
Demon, and
yeah.
just work hard and show people that
And
you're here
don't
to
be
do it.
afraid. Yeah, and don't be afraid to show your who you are, because you're
Mhm.
so unique. There's no one like you. And so however you deliver your lines, however you write, your vision of directing is your voice. It's so uniquely to you. There's no one like that. So the closer you play to who you are and the things you love will resonate much better than trying to fulfill someone else's idea, you know. And that's why when I'm on set, especially when I'm doing scenes, yeah, there are moments where I'm like, oh my god, I get a little nervous because that's just natural. I'm a human being. But once I remind myself that I'm there for a reason, and the closer I play to who I am, the stronger, more nuanced my work becomes. And I surprise myself. And I'm there to listen. I'm trying to be as present as possible so that I'm not having these preconceived performances. Even though we're being repetitive, there's discovery in performance. When you're doing a scene, I'm usually surprised the actor does something I didn't expect, and that provokes me to react in a way that I didn't imagine it when I was in the hotel or in my home, going over my dialogue. So it's kind of know it, but be loose, because you're about to
Mhm.
enter something unknown and have fun, and that's when it comes to life. And we find discovery, and then the directors discover it, and then they start shooting. And that's what happened in The Black Demon. There were a lot of things we were also discovering along the way. So I'm really happy to be in this film, and I hope everybody goes out and sees it. And it's a shark
Absolutely.
movie. So thank you
It's
so much, man.
no problem. Thank you
Great
again
job.
for joining us there. And I'm just gonna cut it right there. But yeah, thank you so much, Julio. This has been great, honestly. Like I really like personally, like not even for the cameras. This was just awesome to get to speak with you, and then also just really inspiring too. Because like we're currently working on a short film for a horror film fest that's coming up
Oh, dude,
in
that's awesome.
September. So like yeah, I'm
Awesome.
actually gonna go to Home Depot after this and get stuff to build some
Well,
props.
here's
So
what's great.
like I
Here,
gotta
here,
this is
well, here's what's great
inspiring.
about the horror community. There's no need to reinvent the wheel as long as you respect the horror genre. And even because it's funny, because it's a fine line between absurd comical horror, or if you lean on the other side, it could be very dramatic, and then even further it could become even more melodramatic. So it's a fine
Absolutely.
line. It can go from comedy to being very serious. Doesn't take much to fall into that space. But I love the horror genre. If things work out, I'm going to be going to Colombia in Bogota to work on a film, and it's a horror film, and I'm really excited about that one. But
Oh,
we're
awesome.
still trying to we're still trying to negotiate the contract, but um, it'll be one that you'll hear about later for sure.
Well, I will keep an eye out for it when I see your name pop up, and I'll make sure to hit up Victoria and see if I can get another interview with you then to see how things have been going since then. All right.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, listen, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you. I really appreciate this, and I hope that
Yeah,
everything goes well. And I'll follow you on Instagram for sure.
yeah,
So if
yeah.
I ever have any questions, tell
I'll
me.
follow you guys too. Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, brother. Take care.
And yes, thank you again to Julio for coming on the show and talking with me. Seriously, again, awesome guy. I loved all the little nuggets we got from him. Again, we did discuss Sicario quite a bit, but I couldn't help myself, guys. I adore that film. It's one of my all time favorite movies. And if I'm going to talk to somebody who is a part of that, I have to. Yeah, but it's so great to have him here. I hope I can interview him again in the future as he continues his work. I know he said he's got a horror movie coming down the pipeline if everything works out. So maybe we'll get him back on for that, and definitely have Luke involved with this one. You know, I really, really appreciate everything that he was able to do to accommodate this. And yeah, I think overall, if you guys haven't seen his new film, The Black Demon, I definitely recommend it. I would definitely say check it out. If you're interested in the kind of shark film kind of fare that we discussed in there, if you like cryptids and things like that, it is for sure worth your time. But yeah, other than that, guys, we got a lot of great stuff on the channel. Like I said at the beginning, we have our interview with the folks over who did Shifted. It's really an interesting film in and of itself. And that is just one of those things where it's like these guys came back to the drawing board so many times to get this movie made. It's a really another great interview. I mean, I'm going to say all of mine are great because I enjoyed doing it, but I hope you guys get some value in it if you are interested in filmmaking. Other than that, we do have a lot of great stuff on the channel. Deconstructing the Deadites, my latest essay, is up, doing really well. You guys seem to be really responding to it. And yeah, I mean, we are slowly approaching 1,000 subscribers. I mean, we have shot up quite a bit in the last week here. It's been crazy. I thank you guys so much for joining us here if you are new to the channel. And yeah, hopefully we can get there by the end of May, guys. That'd be amazing. So until next time, I'm Dylan Newell. And yeah, stay scared.